Rin lived in a quiet corner of the human colony. His small dome stood on the edge of the settlement, surrounded by dry plains and a pale blue sky. The colony had grown fast over the years, but Rin preferred to live away from the noise. He liked the silence, the hum of the machines, and the slow rhythm of each day. He spent most of his time repairing equipment and sending reports to the central hub. One morning, as the sun rose behind the horizon, a transport craft landed near his dome. Its silver body reflected the light, and a soft wind carried the sound of its engines. Rin stepped out to greet the arrival. He had requested assistance months ago, and the message said that an alien domestic worker would be assigned to him. It was a new program that aimed to build stronger bonds between humans and allied species. Rin was curious but unsure of what to expect. The craft door opened and a tall figure stepped out. She moved with calm precision, each step measured. Her name was Tira, and she came from a distant world called Valuna. Her skin had a faint silver tone, and her eyes were wide and clear. Her uniform was simple, designed for work and movement. She carried a single small case. The officer accompanying her gave Rin a quick salute and handed him a datapad with her records. "This is Tira. She is trained in maintenance, cleaning, and basic security. She will stay here for 1 year. If there are any issues, contact the hub." Rin nodded. "Understood. Thank you." The craft lifted off again, leaving Rin and Tira standing in the dusty air. For a moment there was silence. Rin felt a little awkward, unsure of how to start. Tira, however, stepped forward with a small bow. "I will begin my duties," she said in a steady voice. "Please give me instructions." Rin smiled politely. "Come inside. I'll show you the place." Inside the dome, the space was practical. There was a small control room, a kitchen, a workshop, and 2 sleeping quarters. Rin showed her each section and explained the routines. Tira listened carefully, her head slightly tilted, absorbing every word. She asked a few short questions to confirm details but spoke little otherwise. Over the next few days, life slowly adjusted. Tira moved like water through the rooms. She cleaned the panels, repaired small faults, organized supplies, and even adjusted the energy filters to improve efficiency. Rin had never seen anyone work with such quiet focus. She did everything without needing reminders. She seemed to understand how things should be arranged just by observing. Rin noticed something unusual. Tira always kept a certain distance from him. When he entered a room, she would step aside with smooth precision, always leaving a clear path. She never stood too close, even when handing him tools or datapads. At first, Rin thought it was just politeness. Her species was known for formal behavior, after all. One afternoon, Rin worked in the workshop while Tira cleaned the filters. A loud alarm rang suddenly. One of the outer panels had a power fault. Rin rushed toward the door and Tira followed silently. They reached the control panel outside and began repairs together. Rin handed her a power coupler, and their hands almost touched. Tira's shoulders stiffened for a brief second. Then she took the tool and returned to work without a word. Rin thought it was strange, but decided not to ask yet. In the evenings, they often sat in the control room. Rin checked reports while Tira adjusted small systems or recorded maintenance logs. She never complained, never seemed tired, and never slowed down. She also never showed much emotion, but her presence made the dome feel alive. Rin found comfort in the quiet rhythm they created together. After about a week, the place looked better than it had in months. The systems were stable, the floors shined, and the storage units were in perfect order. Rin thanked her one night as they finished a long day. "Tira, the dome has never been this organized." "You've done a great job," he said. She lowered her head slightly. "I was trained for this. Your environment must be stable for your work. That is my duty." Her answer was simple, almost mechanical, but her eyes held a faint spark of pride. Rin smiled. "Still, thank you." She looked at him for a moment, then returned to her log entries. As the days passed, Rin grew more curious about her culture. He read a few files about Valuna. The people of Valuna were known for their sharp senses and instinctive loyalty to those they served. In their ancient history, they formed close protection bonds with leaders during battles. These bonds were deep, almost like old instincts passed through generations. Rin wondered if Tira carried those instincts even here, far from her world. One morning, Rin woke up early and walked into the kitchen. Tira was already there, preparing a nutrient pack and cleaning the counters. She greeted him with a short nod. Her movements were always graceful, like a dancer following a rhythm only she could hear. Rin poured a drink and leaned against the wall, watching her work. He noticed again how she always kept at least 2 steps between them. He finally asked, "Tira, is it part of your culture to keep this distance?" She paused for a second, then answered, "It is respectful. It prevents misunderstandings." Rin accepted the answer, but there was something more in her tone, something she did not explain. He decided not to push further. The colony outside was peaceful for now. Supplies came in on time and reports were regular. Rin's days became smoother than ever, thanks to Tira's constant support. She never raised her voice, never hesitated, and never once showed frustration. But Rin still felt a quiet mystery around her. It was not something threatening. It was more like a hidden rule that she followed silently. He did not know that soon one small movement behind her would reveal everything. The morning began quietly inside the dome. The pale sky outside spread over the dry plains like a calm blanket. Rin had woken up early and checked the power grid readings. Everything was stable. He felt at ease as he walked through the hall, hearing the soft sound of Tira working in the kitchen. She always started her duties before sunrise, making sure every system in the dome ran smoothly. Rin entered the workshop to check a communication unit that needed adjustments. The unit had been giving static for 2 days, and he wanted to fix it before the next report to the colony hub. He opened the side panel and started replacing a few wires. Tira appeared quietly at the door holding a small tray with tools and a thermal pack of tea. She placed the tray on the table with her usual grace and stepped back to give him space. "You fixed the power regulator last night," Rin said while adjusting a wire. "That was good work." "It was a simple task," Tira replied in her calm voice. "Your equipment responds well to maintenance." He smiled faintly. Her tone never changed much, but her dedication impressed him every day. He reached for a connector on the shelf, but accidentally pushed another small device to the floor. It rolled under the workbench near where Tira stood. She bent slightly to pick it up. At that same moment, Rin moved around the table and stepped behind her to reach for it too. He did not think much about it. It was a natural movement. But as soon as he stood directly behind her, something strange happened. Tira froze completely. Her hands stopped moving. Her breathing became shallow and slow. Her shoulders stiffened as if locked in place. Rin noticed the sudden change and paused. He stood there silently for a second, confused by her reaction. Her eyes focused straight ahead, and she did not take another step. "Tira," he said carefully, "are you all right?" She gave no answer. Her legs trembled slightly, not from fear but from some invisible pressure. Rin slowly stepped back, unsure what else to do. As soon as he moved away, Tira gasped softly and straightened up. She turned toward him, her face calm again but her eyes slightly wider than usual. "I am fine," she said quickly. Rin looked at her with concern. "You froze. You could not move." "It was a reaction," she said. "It is not your fault." She turned back to the workbench and placed the device back carefully. Her movements were a little more controlled than usual, as if she was trying to keep her balance. Rin wanted to ask more, but he sensed that she was not ready to explain. Instead, he gave her space. The rest of the day went on in silence. Tira worked as usual, but Rin noticed small differences. She avoided standing in tight spaces when he was near. She moved more cautiously whenever he walked behind her. She never looked nervous, only careful. Later in the evening, Rin sat at the control station and reviewed maintenance reports. Tira was recording new data in the storage room. He could not stop thinking about the morning. The way she froze had not been normal. It had not been simple surprise. It looked more like a deep instinct, something automatic and ancient. Rin opened the colony database on his screen and searched for information about Volunian behavior patterns. He had read some general cultural files before, but now he looked deeper. Most of the documents focused on their sensibilities, their teamwork in tight formations, and their loyalty traditions. Then one entry caught his attention. It was a small note from a joint research file between humans and Volunians. The note mentioned something called proximity imprinting. It described a rare instinct that could appear when someone stood directly behind a Volunian for the first time in close range. In their ancient past, Volunians had formed defensive lines around their leaders during conflicts. When an ally stood behind them, their body locked in position to form a living shield. They could not step forward until the one behind moved away. It was not considered dangerous, but it was powerful and deeply tied to their instinct to protect. Rin leaned back in his chair and thought about the moment again. He had stood behind Tira without warning. Her reaction matched the description almost exactly. She had not panicked. She had locked in place, unable to step forward. It was an instinct older than any modern training. A few minutes later, Tira entered the room holding a small device that needed checking. Rin decided to speak up. "Tira," he said in a calm voice. "Earlier today, when I stood behind you, something happened. I read about proximity imprinting." "Is that what it was?" She paused in the doorway. Her eyes met his for a brief second. Then she looked down at the device in her hands.
"Yes," she said softly.
"It was unexpected. Does it mean something serious?" Rin asked. She stepped closer, but still kept her usual respectful distance. "It means that my instinct has marked you as someone I must protect from behind. When you are close in that position, I cannot step away until you do. It is a reflex. It is part of my species." Rin nodded slowly. "So it is not dangerous?" "No," she replied. "It is not dangerous. But it is rare. It usually happens only between my people. I did not think it could happen with a human." Rin gave her a small, reassuring smile. "I did not mean to trigger it. I just moved without thinking." "I know," Tira said. "You did nothing wrong." For a moment, they both stood quietly. There was a slight shift in the air between them. The dome that had felt simply like a workplace now felt like it held something deeper. This bond, even if instinctive, changed how Tira saw him. She did not show it through emotion, but through the way she stood a little more aware of his presence. Later that night, as the wind outside brushed against the dome walls, Rin sat by the window looking at the stars. Tira moved quietly through the halls, checking the systems one last time before resting. Rin thought about the strange connection that had formed between them. He did not plan it, but he could not ignore it either. He realized that if danger ever came from behind, Tira would not move away. She would stand between him and the threat, even without a command. It was both surprising and humbling. He felt a new sense of responsibility toward her. She was not just a worker anymore. She was now part of something older and stronger. He did not know that soon this bond would be tested in ways neither of them expected. The next day began with clear skies and calm winds over the colony. Rin followed his usual routine, checking system reports while sipping warm tea. Tira moved quietly through the dome, adjusting equipment and cleaning panels. On the surface, everything felt normal, but both of them remembered what had happened the day before. There was a new awareness between them, quiet but strong. Rin decided to learn more about the strange instinct that had shown itself. He had read the research file briefly, but now he wanted a deeper understanding. After finishing his morning tasks, he opened the colony database again. He searched through the archives, scrolling through pages of information about Valunian history and culture. Most of it described teamwork in battle formations and their sense abilities, but one section caught his attention. It was an old translated manual from Valunian training schools. The manual explained that proximity imprinting was not only an instinct, but also a symbolic act in their culture. In the past, when someone stood behind a Valunian during a dangerous time, it created a bond of trust. The one in front would protect and the one behind would support. Once triggered, the Valunian instinctively treated the person behind as someone they must never abandon during danger. It was more than physical reaction. It was like an unspoken promise born from their ancient ways. Rin leaned back in his chair and thought about Tira. She had come to his dome as part of a work program. Neither of them expected something like this to happen. He wondered how she felt about it. She had been calm, but her voice had carried something different when she explained it. Perhaps it meant more to her than she wanted to show. Later in the afternoon, Rin found Tira in the supply room. She was organizing spare parts with her usual precise movements. He approached slowly so he would not startle her. She noticed him immediately and turned slightly to face him, keeping that respectful space between them. "Tira," Rin said gently, "I have been reading more about your culture. I understand now that what happened between us is important." She placed a small box on the shelf and looked at him. Her expression stayed calm, but there was a hint of seriousness in her eyes. "It is part of my nature," she said. "When someone stands behind me that way, my instincts take over. It is how my people protected their allies long ago." "Does it change anything for you?" Rin asked. "It means that in dangerous moments, my body will act before I think," Tira explained. "If something comes from behind, I will not move away. I will defend the position. It is not something I can ignore. Rin nodded slowly. I see. Thank you for explaining. Tira tilted her head slightly. Many humans do not read these things. You are different, Rin gave a small laugh. I like to understand the people around me. It helps me work better. She seemed to consider his words carefully. Her species often valued quiet loyalty more than open talk. But Rin's honesty seemed to make a difference. For the first time, a faint smile touched the corner of her mouth before she turned back to her task. That evening, the colony sent a general message to all outer domes. A small meteor storm was approaching the planet's atmosphere. The meteor fragments were expected to burn up before reaching the surface. But the colony asked everyone to secure equipment just in case. Rin and Tira began working together to tighten external panels and check shield emitters. As they moved from one side of the dome to the other, Rin noticed again how well they worked as a team. Tira's sharp senses caught problems before the sensors did, and Rin's technical skills solved them quickly. It felt natural, like they had been working together for years even though only weeks had passed. While securing a panel near the dome's outer ring, Rin climbed a ladder to adjust a loose cable. Tira handed him tools with steady hands. The wind outside picked up slightly, carrying fine dust across the plain. The sky had turned a deeper shade of blue as the sun began to set. Tira, Rin said from the ladder, I think this instinct of yours is not a weakness. It might be a strength. If something happens, you can sense danger better than I can. She looked up at him. It is not about strength or weakness. It is about purpose. My kind was made to protect in this way. Rin tightened the cable and climbed down. Still, I think it is special. She gave no answer, but the look in her eyes showed that his words meant something to her. Night came quickly. The dome lights glowed softly against the dark sky. Rin sat in the control room reviewing shield data. Tira walked around the dome checking seals and filters one last time. The meteor storm had begun and faint streaks of light flashed across the sky. Most fragments burned harmlessly, but one sensor beeped a warning. A larger piece had entered lower orbit and was heading toward their sector. Rin stood quickly and looked at the display. The fragment was small, but large enough to damage the outer surface if it struck at the right angle. He opened the communication line to the hub, but the storm caused interference. The signal crackled and only half the words came through. Tira, he called. We might need to adjust the shield manually. She appeared at his side almost instantly. Show me, she said. He pointed to the data. If this fragment comes closer, the automatic shield might not catch it in time. We need to use the manual panel outside. She nodded without hesitation. They both put on protective jackets and stepped outside through the airlock. The night air was cold and the sky flashed with distant streaks of burning rock. They moved to the shield control panel located near the outer dome wall. Rin knelt beside the panel while Tira stood near him, scanning the horizon with her sharp eyes. Rin worked quickly, adjusting the shield frequency. His hands moved over the controls while Tira stayed alert. A distant sound like a low hum grew louder. She turned her head toward the source. Her senses had picked up something before the sensors did. Above, she said. Rin looked up and saw a bright fragment cutting through the atmosphere heading their way. He adjusted the shield field with more urgency. The wind rushed around them as the fragment glowed brighter. Tira stepped slightly forward, placing herself between Rin and the sky without even thinking. Her posture changed into a firm, protective stance. The fragment hit the outer shield with a loud crackling sound, lighting up the night for a brief moment. The shield held, sending the object tumbling away into the distance. Rin let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Tira turned back to him. Her expression was calm, but her position showed what the imprinting meant in practice. She had placed herself between him and danger without hesitation. It was not commanded. It was instinct. When they returned inside, Rin looked at her seriously. That was incredible. You reacted faster than the sensors, she answered simply. It is what I was made to do. Rin understood now that the hidden rule inside her was not just a tradition. It was something alive and strong. This bond between them was no longer just a quiet mystery. It was becoming a powerful force that neither of them had planned, but both were starting to respect. The days after the meteor storm were peaceful. The colony had not suffered any serious damage and Rin's dome stood unharmed. The experience had made Rin and Tira work even more smoothly together. Their bond, born from instinct and trust, grew stronger with each passing day. Rin continued his technical tasks while Tira maintained the dome with quiet precision. But peace on the frontier rarely lasted long. One late afternoon, Rin received a message from the central hub. It was short and serious. The colony sensors had detected unidentified signals approaching the outer zones. The signals did not match any known colony ships or trading vessels. The hub instructed all Outer Dome residents to stay alert and prepare for possible emergency protocols. Rin read the message twice to be sure. The last time something like this happened, it had been a false alarm caused by drifting debris, but this time the signal pattern looked deliberate. He closed the message and turned to Tira, who was checking energy filters near the control room. "Tira, we might have trouble coming," Rin said. The hub picked up unknown signals near the colony. She looked at him calmly. "Do you want me to secure the dome?" "Yes," Rin replied. "Let's make sure everything is locked and ready. If anything happens, we need to be prepared." Without hesitation, Tira began moving through the dome, sealing windows, checking door locks, and activating defense shutters. Rin secured communication lines and powered up the emergency backup generator. The air inside the dome grew quiet and tense. Outside, the sky turned darker as the sun began to set. Hours passed. Rin sat at the control panel, watching the radar screen. At first there was nothing. Then a faint blip appeared on the outer edge of the sensor range. It moved slowly, almost as if testing their defenses. Another blip followed, then a third. Rin leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the screen. Tira entered the room silently. "They are close," she said. "Yes," Rin answered. 3 signals. They are not responding to any contact attempts." She placed a hand on the wall, as if listening through it. Her species could detect faint vibrations that humans could not. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "They are not ships. They are drones, small and fast." Rin quickly adjusted the screen. The radar confirmed her words. 3 small objects approached in a tight formation. They were most likely raider drones. These machines were often sent ahead to weaken defenses before the raiders moved in. The first drone reached the dome perimeter. A faint hum echoed outside. Tira's ears caught it immediately. She moved closer to Rin's side. He switched the shield to active defense mode. A bright light flashed outside as the drone tested the shield with a focused beam. The shield held, but the attack confirmed their intentions. "They are not scouting," Rin said. "They are attacking." Tira's voice was calm and steady. "Then we defend." The drones moved fast, circling the dome. Their attacks came from different angles, testing for weak points. Rin operated the defense panel, trying to predict their movements. Tira moved with controlled speed, adjusting shield, frequencies and rerouting power lines to keep the barrier strong. Suddenly, the power grid flickered. A second wave of interference hit the dome's external lines. Rin cursed under his breath but stayed focused. "They are trying to cut the power," he said. "We must stop them from getting inside," Tira replied. One drone broke away from the others and slipped through a blind spot in the sensor grid. It moved toward a maintenance hatch near the back of the dome. Tira sensed it first. She turned sharply and ran toward the corridor. Rin followed right behind her. The maintenance hatch opened with a mechanical hiss. A small drone the size of a large bird slipped inside. Its metal frame reflected the emergency lights, and its single red sensor scanned the room. It was quiet but fast. Rin reached the corner and saw the drone hovering near the hallway. He stepped behind Tira without even thinking. The moment he did, her body reacted. She froze in place but not in fear. Her muscles tightened, and her posture changed completely. Her arms spread slightly, and she stood like a living wall between Rin and the drone. Her head tilted forward, and her clear eyes locked onto the target. The drone moved first, firing a small cutting beam toward them. Tira's reaction was immediate. She stepped forward and deflected the beam with a reflective shield plate from the wall. The sound echoed through the corridor. Rin quickly pulled a tool from his belt and threw it toward the emergency power box, activating a defense burst. Tira moved with incredible speed. She closed the distance between herself and the drone, twisting her body to avoid its second shot. Her hands grabbed a metal pole from a nearby rack. With a sharp swing, she struck the drone's side, sending it crashing against the wall. The impact disabled its targeting sensor. Rin rushed forward to help, but Tira was already finishing it. She used precise movements to pin the drone and disable its power core. The machine went dark and fell to the floor with a heavy thud. Rin stared for a moment, amazed by her skill. "That was fast," he said. "It is my instinct," she replied calmly. "You stood behind me. That means I must protect." Her words carried quiet strength. Before they could catch their breath, the other two drones attacked from outside again. Rin returned to the control room while Tira stayed near the hatch to guard it. He rerouted extra power to the shield and activated a manual defense turret. The turret fired bursts of energy at the hovering drones, forcing them to retreat temporarily. Tira joined him at the panel. Her sharp eyes scanned the display. "They are calling for more," she said. Rin tightened his grip on the controls. "Then we make sure this dome stays standing." The next 10 minutes were tense. The drones made several coordinated attacks, trying to break through different points. Rin and Tira worked like a single machine. He handled the technical defenses, while she reacted to every sound and movement with unmatched precision. Finally, after a series of sharp strikes from the turret, the last drone was destroyed. The radar showed no new signals. The attack was over. Rin leaned back in his chair, breathing hard. Tira stood beside him, calm but alert, her silver-toned skin shining under the emergency lights. "You were amazing," Rin said. "You moved like you were trained for this kind of situation." She looked at him with steady eyes. "I was not trained for this specific place. I was trained to protect those who stand behind me. That is what I did." Rin nodded with respect. The strange instinct that had surprised him before had just saved both their lives. He realized that, together they had formed a defense stronger than either could have built alone. Outside, the wind carried away the remains of the destroyed drones. Inside the dome, a new understanding filled the air. This was no longer just a work partnership. It had become something unspoken but powerful. The morning after the attack arrived with a quiet calm. The sky above the plains was bright and clear, as if nothing had happened the night before. The broken drone parts still lay scattered outside the dome. Rin stood by the main window and watched the horizon while sipping a warm drink. Tira was already outside, inspecting the shield generator with her usual focus. Her movements were precise, steady, and strong. Rin walked out to meet her. The air was cool and fresh. He could hear the faint sound of her tools tapping against the metal panels. She glanced at him as he approached. "The generator is stable," she said. "The damage was light. I will finish the repairs soon." Rin nodded. "Good. The hub will want a full report. They might send a patrol to check the area." She continued working without hesitation. Rin watched her for a moment. The memory of the night attack was still clear in his mind. The way she had moved to protect him, the way they had fought together had changed something between them. She was no longer just an assigned worker in his home. She had become a trusted partner. When the repairs were done, they returned inside. Rin sent a full report to the colony hub, describing the attack in detail and attaching sensor logs. Within an hour, a patrol ship flew over their dome and confirmed that the area was clear. A message came through the communication line. "Rin, your defense report was impressive," the officer said. "Your quick response and your assistance actions kept the attack from spreading. The council will review your case. Be ready for a visit later this week." Rin thanked the officer and closed the line. He turned to Tira, who stood quietly beside the console. "Looks like people noticed what we did," he said with a small smile. She replied in her calm voice, "We did what was necessary." Later that day, the colony council sent 2 representatives to the dome. They examined the damage and reviewed the data logs. They also asked Rin to explain exactly how he and Tira coordinated their defense. Rin told them everything, from the moment the drones appeared to the way Tira reacted when he stood behind her. One of the representatives, an older woman with sharp eyes, listened carefully. "This imprinting instinct," she said. "It is rare to see it happen between a human and a Valunian. Your teamwork was remarkable. You may have stopped a larger attack." Tira stood beside Rin, silent but alert. Her presence alone gave the room a feeling of quiet strength. The representatives thanked them and left. After they were gone, Rin looked at Tira thoughtfully. You know, they are right. We did something special. She tilted her head slightly. I only followed my instinct. And I trusted you, Rin replied. That is what made the difference. That evening, they sat in the control room as the sun set. The dome lights created a warm glow around them. Rin was not working on reports for once. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and let his thoughts settle. Tira was seated across the room checking her maintenance list. After a long pause, Rin spoke. Tira, when you first came here, I thought of you as someone who would help with daily work. But after everything we faced, I see you differently now. She looked up from her work. Her clear eyes met his. How do you see me? As a partner, Rin said. Someone I can trust. Someone who stood beside me when danger came. Tira seemed to consider his words. Her species did not show emotions in the same way humans did. But there was a slight softening in her posture, like a quiet acknowledgement. I will continue to protect this place, she said. That is my purpose, Rin smiled. And I will continue to trust you. Over the next few days, the colony strengthened security around the outer domes. More patrols flew over the area, and new shield upgrades were distributed. Rin and Tira worked together to install the improvements. The bond between them grew more natural. They no longer needed many words to coordinate. A simple look or movement was enough to understand what the other intended. The Colony Council later announced that Rin's dome would serve as a model for human and Volunian cooperation. Other settlers were encouraged to learn from their teamwork. Rin received messages from nearby colonists asking how they managed to defend so effectively. He always answered with honesty. It was not just skill, he said. It was trust. One evening after finishing their daily work, Rin stood near the window again. The sky above was filled with stars. Tira stood beside him, silent as always. The wind outside brushed gently against the dome walls. Rin broke the silence. Tira, the night of the attack, when I stood behind you, I saw something change. You didn't hesitate. You became a shield. She turned her head slightly. That is the imprint. When you stand behind me, my purpose is clear. I protect. It is old, but it is strong. Rin nodded slowly. I trust it. And I trust you. For a long moment, they stood side by side, looking out at the stars. No words were needed. Their bond had been tested and proven in real danger. It was no longer just about instinct. It had become about choice. Tira could have requested reassignment after the attack. Many Volunians preferred not to stay bonded with humans because it created unexpected responsibilities. But she had made her decision without saying it directly. She continued her duties as if the dome were her own home. A week later, the colony held a small gathering to honor those who had defended against the drone attack. Rin and Tira stood together as their names were called. The crowd clapped politely, but Rin noticed that Tira stood tall and calm, her silver-toned skin glowing softly under the lights. She did not seek praise, but her presence carried quiet pride. When they returned home that night, Rin walked a few steps behind her as they entered the dome. She stopped briefly at the door, sensing him behind her. For a moment, neither moved. It was the same position that had triggered the imprint long ago, but now it felt different. This time, there was no confusion. There was understanding. Rin smiled and stepped forward to stand beside her. We make a good team, he said. Yes, she answered simply. We stand together. The dome lights dimmed as night settled over the plains. The wind outside was steady. Inside, there was a feeling of quiet strength. They were no longer just human and alien worker. They were partners, bound by instinct, trust, and choice. The colony had changed because of their actions. And their lives had changed too.